Hello, welcome to J Lowe Artist YouTube channel. Today we'll be doing some drawing with graphite. So get out your pencils, your cotton swab, kneaded eraser, anything that you think you need to draw with. Have it right handy. And let's draw together. Remember, art makes life better. So first of all, let me thank you for coming along with me on this little journey of drawing faces. One thing that a lot of people struggle with is drawing faces, and I get this from most of my students. Oh, I hate drawing faces. It's because, number one, maybe you don't know how, and number two, there's a recipe for it that you anticipate. You just know it's going to happen. So let me just kind of zoom into this face. This is Jennifer Connolly, and just going to zoom into her face and just talk about a few things. First of all, there's a dark edge around the iris. Everybody has that. And oftentimes you don't see the entire iris. And so if you think, well, I'm just going to cut off the bottom a little bit more off the top, you got it. But look at her nose. Remember that sphere we drew last time? Look at her nose. It's a sphere. I mean, there's a highlight, light side, shadow edge, shadow core, reflected light, and even this area down in here would be a cast shadow. Our light is coming more straight on, and so our cast shadow isn't so big. But it's there. So if you can draw that sphere, you can draw anything. So we're just gonna zoom into this and draw about what? That much of it? Is that good? So the first thing we have to do is establish our size. Simple shapes. What's the shape of her head? Okay, not so much an oval as an egg. Okay, because it's where the chin is, it's a little thinner than where the cranium is. So we're going to start out, you can say, well, the cranium is a circle. If you wanted to, you can start out with a circle. A lot of people do. I don't. I usually just start out with an egg shape. Kind of like this. Now, we're going to have to adjust that because her chin is not exactly that shape. Her head is not exactly that shape. But the biggest thing is we need the size. This needs to be at least the size of your hand. And since she's looking straight on, we're going to just divide her head in half. So there's a line. We're just going to call that the vertical axis. And that just helps me to say, okay, this side of the head needs to be the exact same size as this side of the head. Okay, so try to make sure that they're the same. Use your pencil like a little measuring device. Make sure it's the same. And now we want to divide it up horizontally as well, in half. And so I'm going to just take my pencil and say, is that half? And then I'll check it. Use my fingers like calipers. Half. That's pretty close. Then there's my horizontal axis. Then we want to divide that space up horizontally in half as well. So I'm just going to go, if this is half here, is that half? Yeah, it's about half. And if that's half there, then it should be the same on the other side. So now I've divided that up in half. That is where your eyes go, but they don't go right there. They actually are on the inside. If you take that little L shape that's right there, and you just put your iris right there, that's about half. So that then becomes the iris of your eye. And I might need to make that a little bigger or a little smaller. Now, how do you make them the same size? Well, you can measure, you can use your pencil, you can measure. You take a piece of tracing paper, lay it over, and draw a circle there, and then put it over here, and just make sure it's the same size. You could do that. Now what you want to do is divide that space in half. So I'm going to go from the outside of that iris and just divide that space in half. Same thing over here. Divide that space in half. That should be where your tear duct is. So if you come from that little line straight up till you hit the top of that circle, your iris, and then do a little arch down. That's your eye. If I take that space now, which I would call the bridge of my nose, and I were to measure that, my eye should be the same size. So you have one eye distance in between each eye. One eye, another eye in between the eyes, another eye, and then you have 3/4 of an eye on the outside. So if I were to measure that eye, come out here, I should cut off 1/4 of that right there. And this one's just about right anyway. So you have 1, 2, 3 eyes, and 3/4 and 3/4. That makes how many eyes? Okay, so you have 4.5 eyes wide. And if you were to take and measure Jennifer Connelly, you would find that is very much the case. Then what you do is you measure from the center, which is right below those irises, right below your eyes, to the chin, and you divide that space in half, which is about right there. That is where your philtrum is. You know what your philtrum is? Yeah, that little divot that just goes below your nose to your lip is your philtrum. Okay, so if you think about this, this is your eye. You have one eye width between the bottom of your nose and the top of your mouth. And again, if you look at Jennifer there, you would find that's the case. So all you got to do is say, well, just above that line is the tip of the nose, and just below that line is the top of the mouth. So you can say, okay, here's the tip of the nose. And you could put a little circle or a little U shape just to say that's where the tip of the nose goes. Again, look at Jennifer here. The width of her eye is the width of her nose. So if you come straight down from those tear ducts, that's where a nostril goes. Straight down from the tear, that's a nostril. Now, yes, we're all slightly off, but for the most part, this is us. This is the way we look. So there's a nostril there and a nostril there, and it's the width of your eye. Now, if you come down from the inside of the eye, so here's your pupil in there. If you come down just on the inside of that pupil, straight down, and make a little mark from this other eye, come straight down, make a little mark. That's the corner of the mouth. And again, you can do that. You can take your pencil and line it up with the center of her eye and come straight down. That's about where the corners of her mouth are. So you can block those in. Then you can say, oh, there's a mouth right here somewhere. I'm just going to do a little curve that represents the top of her lip, the inside of her lip, and then she's got this little flattened football shape where her mouth is. A little straighter on the bottom lip than on the top. And the bottom lip, I don't even draw the bottom lip in. I just say, gee, about 1/3 of the way up from there, and everybody's lip is a little different, but you just put a little shadow under there and say, this is where the bottom lip goes. So this is called proportioning, and everybody's this way. You can figure out, I mean, even when I do my superhero faces, this is how I do it. When I draw a person, any person, this is how I do it. Now I can get rid of all those lines, those guidelines, because I don't need them anymore. And let's figure out the side of the face. If you go from the tip of the nose, not from the end of the nose, but from the tip of the nose, the center of the nose, you come straight out, that's where her earlobe goes. So you can come straight out and you can make a little mark there. Just a little curve, there's an earlobe there. You come straight out from the other one, there's a little earlobe right there. Somewhere in there. And we can adjust it. And where her eyebrow is, if you go from the top of her eyebrow, which is one eye above her eye, so you think about the distance between here and there and the distance between here and there, it's about the same. You go straight out from the top of the eyebrow, that's where the tip of the ear goes. Well, you can't see it because she's got hair covering it up, but that's where it would be. Now, her chin is kind of round. If I come down here about the width of her mouth, not to the end, but to the open part, to the inside, I just do a little arch. There's her chin. And her jaw, if I come straight out from her mouth, the opening of her mouth, and come straight over, there's a little curve right there. There's a curve there, curve on the other side. Let me get rid of my line so you can see what I'm doing. A little curve there, and then just connect those. A little curve there, a little curve there. And then that arch just comes at a slight angle. It doesn't come straight up, but it's slight angle up to where the ear connects. There's a little cheekbone, and that comes even with the tip of her nose. So if you come straight out, tip of the nose, there's cheekbone right there. Tip of the nose straight out, little line, there's cheekbone. And you can see that. Now the hair, if you come up and you take about a 1/6 to an 1/8 of the head, so you're only coming down about that far, that's about where the hair starts. What I do is I'll make little lines like this to just tell me this is where the hair starts. And if it's parted in the middle, I'll do little lines going one way and little lines going the other way. But the hair comes out of the head. You don't draw a line there. That's proportioning. Once you get everything where it's supposed to go, then everything else is going to fall into place. Let's start shading. And from here on out, once I get my established where everything goes, I rarely use my number 2 pencil. So I'm going to use my 6B pencil here. And a couple of things you can do. I'm going to just, right over the eye, there is an eyelid that fits into the head. Some you can see a little more than others, but for the most part, it's just this double line across the top of the eye. Then, once I establish that, I say, well, I can see where that iris goes. The iris, you can see her eye is a little bit larger. You can almost see all of that iris on the bottom. The top part is cut off. So you come up from the top part, not quite right in the center. If you were to put your pupil in there, it would almost touch the top part where the eyelid is. Not quite, but almost. And it would be centered in the iris. And the iris is nice and round. But I'm not gonna draw the bottom part of the iris. I know I can see a little bit of that. I'm not gonna draw it in right now. I'm just going to go into my eye and say, well, okay, there's a highlight, and it's probably right over the pupil, so I can come in and I can just say, well, somewhere in there is a little highlight. And I can shade in that pupil, because that pupil is a hole. It's as dark as your 6B pencil will go. So I'm just going to shade that in. Leaving out that little highlight, I gotta remember to keep that highlight out. And then a couple of things I know. I know that the eyelashes, as they come out away from the head, create this canopy. And because of that canopy, your iris is going to be darker up at the top than it is at the bottom. So when I shade this, I'm going to shade this a little darker at the top. Remember to leave out that highlight. A little darker up at the top. And as it comes down, I'm just going to let it go. Because I can take my cotton swab and blend that down. So shade it a little darker at the top, and as you come down, don't forget the iris has a little edge to it, a little darker edge. So I'm going to put in that little darker edge, both sides, top and bottom, side to side. And I'm just going to leave it like that. Then I'm going to blend it down. I also know that this part where the eyelid fits into the head is a little darker. I'm going to keep that up there. You can actually see on hers, there's a double little wrinkle. So you could put that in there too if you want. But if you were just going to do a standard eye, that's it. Notice the eyelid. Again, let me zoom into her eye. Look at the bottom eyelid. You can see the ridge of the bottom eyelid, and it's almost the same value as her eye. And so I'm not going to draw that in. If you don't see it, don't draw it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, I can see this edge where the tear duct is. I can draw that in. And I can even draw that little edge where the tear duct is, and a little bit of value there. Leave a little spot out where the duct itself is. I can see the top lid is darker because there's a little shadow that's over that. And this lid over here, because of her eyelashes, is quite dark. So I'm going to just shade that in. Little triangle right there. But this part here, I'm going to leave it out. You may, if you want to, put a little tiny line right there to show that edge of that eye, and then leave the rest of it out. There's also a shadow that is under there. And so if you come in and shadow that, leaving that little gap, you're going to have a very realistic looking eye. Just a little bit of a shadow. Now, you can also see these little wrinkles. Do not draw those in with a line. We're going to use our cotton swab and our kneaded eraser and get those in, and then they'll look like those little soft wrinkles without being a line. So at this point, even if you have a brand new cotton swab, you can do a little bit of blending. You can go from the top of your eye down, and that'll put in that little bit, and I can even just get that edge from this edge to that edge and see a little bit of that edge of that iris. You can even take and from this corner bring it in just a little bit, because your eye is round. You want to bring that corner in, and a little bit up at the top of this one too. Your eye is never white anyway. And I can take that little bit of darkness that's over there and just blend that down. And now I've got a little bit on my cotton swab. I can blend that shadow under the eye. And here's those wrinkles. One wrinkle there, a little wrinkle over there. Even if they have little smiley wrinkles, some people have little smiley wrinkles that come out of the corner of the eye. You can do that with your cotton swab. Don't do it with your pencil. Otherwise, they end up looking very old. She doesn't have much of that, so I'll blend that back in. But the last thing we want to do is eyelashes. Well, there's darkness over that eye too. Usually your eye kind of folds into your head, and so what do you do with eyebrows? Here's an easy way to do eyebrows. Now, if you wanted to, you can say, well, the shape of her eyebrow is about like this. It kind of curves up away from the eye, and it's a little thicker up in here, but the shape of the eyebrow is about like that. So now what I'm going to do is just take the tip of my pencil and do feathered lines like this. And you want to go in the direction that you see the hair go. Usually it starts out from the middle and kind of goes out towards the outside. You can curve some up, you can curve some down. You just do little feathered lines, and it's just a little flick of the line. You drop your pencil in and then flick it, and you'll get that feathered line. And don't have them all going in the same direction. Some have to go up and some kind of go down. And you just kind of flick it. This is a practice thing. If you think, oh wow, this is hard. Yeah, it is to begin with. Everything's hard to start with. But then there's your eyebrow. And all we got to do is blend that. I have a little bit darker edge right there at the bottom. Now I can bring that down into my eye. And there's, you can blend a little bit of the eyebrow because there's a shadow in there. I can bring that back into the eye and create a very realistic looking eye. Last thing you do is the eyelashes. And just so you know, when you're doing eyelashes, I'm just going to put that in here. So here's your eye, and it's dark over here. Here's your iris, your pupil, your edge, where your eyelashes go. The eyelashes towards the center of the eye come almost straight up. There's a little bit of a curve to them, but they come kind of more straight up. On the edge, they kind of come out and then up, out and up, out and up. And as they get closer to the middle, the more straight they become. And then as they get towards this edge, they kind of curve the other way. Does that make sense? So these on this side are curving up this way. These are curving almost straight up, and these are going way out and over like this. Does that make sense? And it will make your eye look rounder. Same thing happens with those on the bottom. These are going to curve down like this. As they get towards the middle, less curve, almost straight down. Then as these come over here, it's more curved this way. Does that make sense? So when you do your eyelashes, that's what you're thinking. These on the ends curve way out and up. You see a lot more of that. And then as it gets towards the middle, kind of straight up, and then these few, and there's not too many of them, but these kind of come out the other way. And that will give that sense of direction for your eye. Same thing, these on the bottom, going to curve down here. As they get towards the middle, they come more straight. And these on this side, which there aren't many, curve down that way. Okay, so as you're putting in your eyelashes, that's what you're thinking. Curve. Okay, everybody good with the eye? That is your recipe for eyes. Everybody's eye is that way. And when I draw eyes, even if I can't see them, that's what I draw. And then I alter it according to what I can see. So the nose is the sphere. Just think sphere. It has a cast shadow. So very, very, very lightly around this nostril is my cast shadow. So I can come in and just go, here's a little cast shadow right there. There is a little nostril, and you can see up in that nostril, but just do a little Nike swoosh. Don't connect these. I know there's a shadow there, but don't connect them. So I'm going to draw this little Nike swoosh right here. And same thing on this other side, just this little swoosh. Hers aren't quite as swooshy as some people get. These are a little more arched. But remember, there's a little space. Leave that little bit of space between the outside of the nostril and the inside of the nostril, because there's a shadow there. The outside of the nostril, the inside of the nostril. And then you can see the core shadow that runs along her nose, and just leave a little bit of space right there for that reflected light. And it just comes over. Just leave a little space there so there's a little reflected light. And again, everybody's nose is kind of like this. When you're drawing it, you just know what you're going to look for. And you anticipate it, and you think, oh yeah, I'm going to see that. Here's your little philtrum. It's just this little dark shape here. Sometimes you'll see one end or the other being a little darker. This little shadow to say this is where the tip of the lip is. And I know that there's a little philtrum down in there. If I wanted to, I do just a little shadow there where the philtrum is. But the rest of this we're going to blend. And one thing that a lot of people do when they're first starting out to draw is they say, oh, I can see where the bridge of the nose is. You know, there's a line down the bridge of the nose. If you were to go down the bridge of the nose, you go, okay, there's a line right here, and there's a line over here, you know. They'll draw a line down here. Don't do that, okay? In fact, for this first little bit, don't do line at all. just do shapes, shading, a little bit here and there, a little shading. And a lot of that you can get with your cotton swab. So just forget that there were lines. Okay, forget everything you think you know about drawing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take that darkness that I've got up here, I'm going to bring it down into the bridge of the nose. I'm going to take this that's up here and bring it up into the tip of the nose. And the nostril I'm going to bring down into that cast shadow. And I've left that little bit of reflected light, and now I'm going to just blend that in. And if you blend it too much, you can always take your kneaded eraser and come back in and just touch it and bring that back out. Don't forget that little bit of reflected light. Now, if you're drawing somebody that has freckles, don't draw the freckles in. Use your cotton swab. So let me demonstrate here. She's got a few little freckles on her nose. But if I draw those freckles in, then they're going to look like bugs or something on there. I don't know. But it's just not going to look quite right. So I'm going to just take my cotton swab, make sure I got enough dark on there, and I can come in and just touch it like this. There's those freckles right there. And the difference is there's a little soft edge that you get with these that you don't get with your pencil. Does that make sense? So if your person has freckles, let's say you're drawing your little sister and she's got freckles, and those freckles are very important for her personality, use your cotton swab to get those shapes of those little dark spots. When I was a kid, I had tons of freckles. So here's my light. So I've got my core shadow, my light side, my shadow edge, reflected light, little tiny cast shadow that's in there. Then as it rises up and you've got your highlight in there, don't forget that little highlight and just leave it there. Just leave it out. And that bridge of the nose is done with the cotton swab. Don't put a line down there. Don't put a line anywhere unless you have to. Eyelashes, it's a line. Eyebrows, there's a line. But for the most part, this is how you do it. Hopefully you've used your kneaded eraser enough already to know what it can do. I mean, you just touch your graphite and it'll suck it out. It's pretty neat stuff. Sometimes I draw as much with my eraser as I do with my pencil. Okay, you ready for lips and teeth? Okay, teeth. They can be kind of scary. But first of all, the recipe for lips is this. Your mouth is always darker on the edges because it's curved. And so in the edges of your mouth are going to be darker. Even your lips are darker towards the edges than they are towards the middle. So I always start out with dark edges. And if their mouth is slightly open, you see that little triangle of darkness. It's kind of this little hook where the lip is, and then this little triangle of darkness. And there's teeth in there, but you don't really worry about it because they get dark back in there. So you got this little darkness, like right there. And then the lip itself has a little bit of darkness on it, but I'm just going to zigzag through that darkness. Right under the philtrum, it dips down. This is very common. Most people do that. Have a little dip on their lip right there. And then the other side has the same thing. There's a little triangle of darkness right there. And where the teeth are, instead of drawing the teeth, just draw the edges. So for example, if I come straight down off the lip, there's a tiny little triangle right there. So I'm going to put that little tiny triangle in. And then as that tooth kind of comes over, there's another little curved triangle right there. And then on the other side, same thing. You can even measure those teeth to get them the same width, same size. But don't draw a line there. There's other teeth behind. Now, her lips don't have a line around them, so I'm just going to shade them. Just this little shading up in here. They're darker on the edges, and they get lighter up towards the middle. So I'll just shade them a little bit there, shade them a little bit over here. Okay, am I making sense? Also, if you can see all those little wrinkles in the lip, those you can get done with your cotton swab. So now it's blending time. So what I do is I take my cotton swab and I blend from the dark into the light. So it's a little darker on the edges, a little lighter as you go in. From the dark into the light. And you just let those edges take care of themselves. Same thing with the teeth. Notice the teeth are darker on the edges than they are in the middle. So I'm just going to blend those. A little darker there. I'm going to take that little triangle and I'm going to go straight up. Straight up. A little blending there. And the teeth are not white. And so I'm going to blend through the whole thing. If you want your teeth to look like they're in your head, you have to put a little gray into them. Dark things have a tendency to go back, light things come forward. That's why the tip of the nose, if it has a little highlight on it, it's going to look like it comes out. Whereas your teeth need to look like they go in. And the bottom edge of her lip, there is a little darkness in there. I'm just going to take that little tiny bit of darkness and just go around that, shading it back and forth. I don't want to use the tip of my pencil because if I do, it gets kind of strong, linear. So there's just a little shadow under there. And the rest of that is cotton swab. You can take that cotton swab and blend that. Soften those edges as it comes up. And now that you have enough graphite on there, you can use that in your lip. So here's some of those little lines in the lip. And just like the eyelashes, notice that these on this side curve this way. And they get kind of straighter as they come to the middle, and then these on this side curve the other way. That will give you the illusion of roundedness. Does that make sense? So as you're blending, you just kind of look at those and you can pick out little shapes here and there. And the rest of that you can get with your cotton swab. Or I mean with your kneaded eraser. And then you can come back in with your kneaded eraser and you can touch a few things. There's a little tiny bit of light in her tooth, so I can touch that, bring that out. Little tiny bit of light along the edge. A little bit over here on this corner. And that's really about it. Wasn't that the easiest mouth you've ever drawn? No? And we can go in and we can detail this a little bit more. We can tighten that up. You can take your kneaded eraser, pull out some of those little highlights in the lip. What I want to do though is now you want to do your facial tones, and those you can get mostly with your cotton swab. So I'm just going to go in. I'm just going to darken in some areas. Her hair is very dark. I'm going to darken that in because I want to pull some of this out with my cotton swab. Take your pencil and draw little lines into the head. And if you wanted to, you can say to yourself, well, the edge of the hair is right here. So you could just put in a little edge just to tell you where to go. And then just draw little lines coming into it like this. Some are larger, some are smaller. But just little lines coming into it. And I'm just flicking this because I want that edge there. I want that little soft fuzzy edge. This is where the hair goes. This is where it starts. The rest of it, because her hair is so dark, it doesn't matter. You can just scribble through that. But where it comes out of the head, you want to bring that out with those little edge lines. If she's got a part, so she has a little part there, same thing. You got to kind of figure out where that part comes on both sides. So that you get that part coming. And then you can scribble into it. Okay. But before we do that, I'm gonna do her this side of her face at least. So you see where her cheekbone is, you can bring a lot of that down. Either use the side of your pencil, or you can take your cotton swab after you've done your hair and bring it in. I like to use the side of my pencil. It's a little smoother. A little more smooth, I guess is the word. And with hair, it's the edges that are important. Especially dark hair like this. You can just scribble in whatever, but it's the edges where it comes out. Where it touches the head or where it comes out away from it. That's what's important. In between part, you just scribble. Underneath her chin is dark as well, but I'm sure that there's a little reflected light. So as I come to her chin, I might leave a little bit of space and just do this little bit of a core shadow and leave just a little bit of reflected light in there. Just a little bit. Because I know it's there. If we were to zoom into it, I'm sure we'd see it. Every place except the highlights is going to need some value to it. So I'm going to just go into the darkest areas that I see, even if it's fairly light like this. Like that cheek is pretty dark down in there. But I can use that to my advantage. Then take my cotton swab and blend that. If you're pushing really hard, it might streak on you. So don't push hard. Just take whatever is dry there that you've got. Just don't want it to go streaky. Pick out the lightest areas and say, okay, that's white paper. That's your highlight. Everything else has got to have a little bit of value to it. The other thing is once you start blending it like this and you start getting those grays in there, then you start looking at it and thinking, oh, I got to go darker in certain spots. Like I'm looking at the corners of her mouth. I thought they were dark enough to begin with, but they're not. Got to go darker. You want a good practice in drawing faces? Find an old person that has lots of wrinkles. Always amazes me how much detail makes the person. You know, we're all kind of the same, but it's the details that define us, our personality and who we are. So as I'm drawing faces, I'm always very, very aware of those little details. My wife describes people by their hair. I describe people by their nose and chin. Because that's how I see it. Even that nose, at first I thought, oh, that's dark enough. But now it's like, no, gotta go darker. So she's got a little mole, little beauty spot. I'm just going to pull out some of this from her hair. I'm just going to dab that right there. Rather than try to use my pencil. If I use my pencil, it just becomes too dark, too much. Did I tell you blonde hair is easier to do than dark hair? In a way, it is, but let me just kind of show you what I mean by this hair up here. The edges, I've kind of established where the edges go. So once I get those edges in, I can just scribble through this. Just scribble, 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 scribble. As long as those edges are fine, what's on the inside doesn't matter. And then the edges that go out towards the light, I'm just going to go from the darkness with these little lines out towards the light. And those are the feathered lines. Just throw them out. Then, out away from that, it's going to get dark again. You can see that happening in her hair. Over here, it gets dark again. So then again, I just scribble, 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 and throw some lines towards this other darkness. Don't worry about connecting those. Your eye connects those. So as far as the hair goes, that's really all you need. And then we're going to blend it, take our kneaded eraser into it. If it's blonde, there's just less line. So I can take this and blend it this way. So I blend from the shadows into the light, from the shadows into the light the other way. And where they meet, all I need is a few little highlights and I got it. So I'm blending from the dark into the light, from the dark into the light. And then I just take my kneaded eraser and just pull out a couple little light areas, just a few little shines. And if I want to, I can come back in and just add a couple little lines. That tightens it up and makes it look a little crisper. That's it. That's hair. Piece of cake. Just don't forget those edges. There is not a line there. It comes into the head as little shapes of little edges. Have you ever seen woodless graphite? So from time to time I get woodless graphite. It's a pencil, but it's all graphite. This is all lead. There's no wood around there at all. If you drop it, they shatter like glass. Guess what happened? And so, but I will take this because I don't want to use up all my pencil, and I'll use that in some of those dark areas. Just throw that in there. I don't know if you can see that darkness there, but that's that woodless graphite. I'm just going to throw that in there. I'm just looking at the dark shapes. Don't be afraid to leave things out when you're doing hair either. You can always add more. Did you guys draw the other eye? Yeah, I haven't yet, but I will. Top eyelid. Second eyelid. Are you practicing making wrinkles with those cotton swabs? Especially right around her eye there, there's those few little wrinkles. Just use your cotton swab. Don't need much. Thank you for coming today and drawing with me. Hopefully you've learned something and had some fun doing it. For some of you, this might be the very first time you've ever drawn a face. Hopefully you will want to do it again and that you had fun doing it. And remember, art makes life better. I truly believe it. So hopefully you have a wonderful day. And sign this when you're all done.